Welcome to El Video de Math. So this is kind of for Monday night's homework, which is on page 358 and it's number 51. By the way, the textbook is on the class website under recent announcements. You may have to look for it. It's probably like 8 or 9 postings down, but it's on there somewhere. It's the most recent PDF, Unit 5, Book 2. All right, you can find it. Back to business. For the homework, you had to solve 4 equations. And we're going to do 4 examples that are similar to those equations, or I'm sorry, you had to solve 3. But before we do that, we are going to do, before we do this one, we are going to do this one, which looks nothing like tonight's homework. The reason I put this on there is I wanted to make a point. The first time you had to solve an equation like this, it probably took a little bit of thinking. You had to remember what the steps were and the order to do the steps. Probably by now, if I asked you what's step 1, you just know that step 1 is minus 11. Minus 11, minus 11. And we rewrite this as 3x equals 21. And we say, okay, what's the next step? And you probably know that the next step is divide by 3. Divide by 3. And you are done, and this is your answer. You already know this. The point I want to make is knowing that minus 11 was the first step, and then knowing that divide by 3 needs to be the second step, is something that you've learned from experience. The first time, you had to figure out the reason to do this first, and then the reason to do this second. But once we're used to it, we have good instincts. We just kind of, our subconscious tells us what to do first. So, in tonight's homework, this is one of the first times you've solved an equation that looks like this, so you don't have good instincts about what a good step 1 is. Well, let me tell you what. Anytime you have x in the denominator and you have to solve for x, a good step 1 is to multiply by x on both sides. The opposite of divide by x is multiply by x. So it'll get rid of x on one side, we'll multiply on the other. Usually we don't move x. Usually we move the numbers and we leave x alone. This equation has a different flow to it, but in general, divide by x is usually the first thing you want to get rid of, so we multiply by x. Okay. Let's rewrite our line. We got 6 equals 18x. And then at this point, you probably have good instincts. You probably know that the next step is divide by 2. Sorry, divide by 18. Divide by 18. 18. Divide by 18. Right, gets rid of that. And then we have 6 over 18 equals x. And so we're done, and we could probably say that this is the same thing as 1/3, or I would not prefer this, but 0.3 repeating. Okay. But really, this is just a basic equation where you do the opposite to solve. The only thing that's a little bit unusual is multiply by x is that first step. Moving on. This one's actually just straight up easy. We need to solve for x. This says x divided by 1.5, so we want to get rid of divided by 1.5 by doing the opposite. The opposite is times 1.5. If you multiply on one side, you need to multiply on the other. And then we just get x equals whatever 1.5 times 400 is. So x equals 600, or 600 equals x. That was pretty simple. And then the last one What makes this one a little bit different is there's two fractions. But just like step one was get rid of the fraction, just like step one was get rid of the fraction, step one is going to be get rid of the fractions. This is where that phrase cross multiply comes from. I don't know if you guys remember cross multiply from back in the day. You guys remember the day? It was a long time ago. Oh, my day smeared. Alright. Back in the day, you used to cross multiply. Multiplying by 13 would get rid of the division on one side, and multiplying by 2 gets rid of the division on the other side. Cross multiply is just a way of doing two steps at the same time. So we're going to get rid of divided by 13 with times 13. And we're going to do times 13. And then we're going to get rid of divided by 2 with times 2 and times 2. So I made a pretty big mess. Look, the 13, we're multiplying it, so we have 13, 5 minus x. And then on this side, we're multiplying by 2, so we have 2, 10 plus x. It's very important to know that when you're solving multiplication and division, everything gets multiplied. So it's not just 2 times 10 or 2 times x, it's 2 times the entire thing. So we just do a little distributive property. 13 times 5 is 65. 13 times negative x is minus 13x. 2 times 10 is 20. 2 times x is 2x. And now we just need to combine like terms to solve. We need to collect the x's on one side, so we can get rid of 13x by adding it, because it's the opposite. And so we just need to collect it with the appropriate term. And we can get rid of 20 on this side by subtracting it. And so we just need to combine it with the appropriate term. So we get 4 to 5 equals whatever 2 plus 13 is, which is 15, so 15x. And then we just divide to get rid of the 15, 45 divided by 15. Sorry I ran out of room, but that's our x value. Tonight's homework is actually just 3 simple to solve equations. The last one we cross multiply. The reason we cross multiply is we want to get rid of divided by 2, so we multiply. We want to get rid of divided by 13, so we multiply. We're just cross multiply does 2 steps at once. Get rid of the 1.5 by multiplying by 1.5. And then the first one's the one that's a little bit different. Move divided by x to the other side and make it times x. Alright, that's that. Hope it helps. Make sure you turn in the homework.